What is going on, guys? DragonTamerBlayde here, back with some more Elder Scrolls Legends, and today I am very honored and excited to bring you guys my card reveal for Isle of Madness. First, I want to take a second to thank both Sparkypants and Bethesda, both for all the work they did on the expansion, as well as for allowing me to reveal a card. Thank you very, very much. It means a lot to me. But if you guys are new to the channel, if you've never seen a card reveal here before, it's going to go pretty simple. First things first, I'm going to show up the card on the screen, just in case you're only here for that. I'm not going to waste your time with my thoughts and feelings. If you guys don't really care about them, we'll show the card, and then afterwards, we'll get on into the synergies I think can play well, what decks I think it fits in, all that jazz. So without further ado, here's the card. We've got Tiny Dragon, 2-cost, 1/1 strength creature, with the effect summon deal 1 damage to all enemy creatures in this lane. So it's kind of similar to a Skaven Pyromancer, but it's a dragon. It is the cheapest pure dragon we have in the game. The Clockwork Automaton does count as a dragon, but that was the only dragon that costs under 4 in the game up until this moment. So yeah, that's the card. We're going to get on into synergies here, so let's get on right into it. So like I mentioned, the first thing I wanted to focus on is the fact that this card costs 2, which is pretty important because if we break things down by dragon, we will show you dragon-focused decks were all pretty much the major synergy and the major power plays were coming in the mid to late game. So you've got your Clockwork Dragon, Frostgale doesn't really see play, Delphine's a solid card, but Spine of Elder's Blood, Nahagleaf, Skeletal, Serpentine, you see 4 cost was the cheapest dragon you had access to, which means if you were going for pure dragon synergy, you had to hope to nail a lookout on turn 3 into maybe one of the turn 4 dragons, and that's chewing up a lot of your turn. So a lot of the best combos with these decks, and I'm on record saying that I feel Blade's Lookout and Woodland Lookout are the 2 best lookouts. If you wanted to have a 1-turn combo, so you didn't have to rely on one of your lookouts surviving on the board, you would need at a minimum 7 Magicka before, unless you were using the Clockwork Automaton. That doesn't come up when you sort for dragon for some reason. The Reflective Automaton. This was the only way to play a 5 Magicka 2-card trigger a lookout beforehand. But now that we've got Tiny Dragon, we have the opportunity to play Blade's Lookout and or Woodland Lookout, or any of the lookouts, plus the dragon on the same turn, which I think is huge. And the other benefit of this card is one of the biggest weaknesses of dragon decks, since they are kind of getting going in the mid to late game, is surviving in the early game, particularly against aggro opponents, and even particularly against token opponents, because they go so wide, and for the most part, you're only playing 1 creature per turn for the most part until you get to the later stages of the game, and even then, you're usually only dropping 1 creature per turn. So boards that go wide against you can be a bit of a trouble and can sometimes beat you before you have a chance to stabilize and start playing your dragons. So having a cheap dragon that also deals 1 damage to all the enemy creatures means that against your token and or aggro opponent, quite often you can play a cheap dragon synergy that's also, if not completely wiping the lane, should be able to take out at least 1 or 2 creatures, if not more. So I think that card is going to be absolutely huge for dragon decks, both enabling their dragon synergy, as well as surviving in the early game, which has been one of their trouble points. I think this card fits really well into all red-based dragon decks, mostly because we don't have a ton of dragon options anyway. But also, I think it is a legitimately good card for dragon decks. Dragon decks have never really been meta besides Dragon Shout Scout when that was a thing back in the day. But having Tiny Dragon, I think Dragon Archer will be really solid. Dragon Dagoth will be solid. Dragon Hlaalu, not so much, but maybe better. But I think the 2-color dragon decks will shine the best. Probably Dragon Archer gets better than most from Tiny Dragon. And I think I'm very excited to see that card see play in that deck. But where I think that this deck is, or this card is going to be the most impactful, is actually going to be in Doomcrag decks. So we've got Doomcrag Vampire right here. And for now, the best Doomcrag helpers, I guess I'll call them, because Doomcrag's obviously the most important card in Doomcrag decks. Doomcrag, and then either Disciple of Namira or Shrine of Namira. But Doomcrag's your big boy. He's what you're playing for. It's how you control the board. So normally your Doomcrag decks are using things like Ashlander's Zealot, Sharpshooter Scout wherever she is, Sharpshooter Scout, Raiding Party and or Nord Firebrands. You got these kind of cheap cards that ping and normally are pretty weak cards, but are easy kills when you have your Doomcrag down. So on turn 7, you could drop your Doomcrag plus a Sharpshooter Scout. And for the most part, all of these cards, even things like Stormcloak Vanguard, all of these cards are charge creatures. Occasionally, you got the Sharpshooter Scout with a ping, but they're charge creatures that'll kill one opposing creature for a low magicka cost plus a card. So you got your Doomcrag, and then you have a whole host of cards that will kill one thing with the lethal granted to them by Doomcrag Vampire. You've got more expensive options like Hollow Sharpshooter and or Earthbone Spinner. But again, the common thread amongst all of these cards is these cards are cheap, and you are paying the card to kill one thing for your opponent. So you're 1-for-1-ing quite a bit, and that's why one of the biggest challenges of Doomcrag decks is A, survival, and B, resource management, because if you use all of your pings too soon or at bad times, you don't have pings when you really need them, and you wind up losing because of it. Some Doomcrag decks, and it's more of a extreme get-out-of-jail-free card, but they'll run Skaven Pyromancer. The unfortunate thing with that is it kills your own Doomcrag as well as all of your creatures in order to clear an opponent's lane. Or, I don't really see this ever, but in a much more extreme case would be something like Wildfire Dragon, which completely clears the board completely. That's more expensive, obviously, and then Skaven, while cheaper, you're still killing your own Doomcrag in both cases. So still, there is quite a gap in Doomcrag decks in terms of being able to spend one card that can kill multiple enemy creatures. I think the only one that currently accomplishes that for Doomcrag is Grotwood Ambusher, which is kind of a feel-bad 5-cost. It's fine as a prophecy, but that was the only previous way to clear an entire opponent's lane of creatures, and this is costing a whole lot more, which doesn't really fit super well with the deck otherwise. I don't even think this card saw play in Doomcrag Warrior, and if it did, it was probably one of those just can save you the game off of a prophecy type of cards that you didn't always feel super great about playing. So paying 5 for that, obviously not great. So Tiny Dragon comes in, and you have 2 cost, which fits perfectly into what Doomcrag wants in terms of cheap activators. The ability only targets enemy creatures, which means you get to keep all of your creatures alive, which is another huge plus that you don't have to kill your own Doomcrag, which means your synergy gets to keep pushing forward. And it's all enemy creatures, which means you completely wipe your opponent's lane while doing no harmful effects to yourself. And the only downfall of the card in this situation is that it's only a 1/1, which really isn't that horrible for the perceived or what you should be getting value out of this card when you play it. Honestly, I think it's fine even without Doomcrag, but when Doomcrag's down and you're killing an entire lane of creatures, that's perfectly fine for 2 magicka. And then having the 1/1 body left behind, yeah, it's not going to kill anything on its own, but your Doomcrag is still alive since you didn't have to kill it off, and now you have another 1/1 body to trade into something later, and if you have Disciple of Namira down, you're drawing a card. Tiny Dragon can kill a whole bunch of stuff in a Doomcrag deck for very little investment. It costs 2 magicka and a card. That's nothing for Doomcrag. You're doing that all day with Ashlander's Zealot to kill one thing. Why not play 1 more magicka, lose 1 health, and completely wipe a lane? It's going to be really, really good in Doomcrag decks. Honestly, I think Doomcrag's been a solid deck for quite a while, and I think the addition of Tiny Dragon can make it from a deck that I think will still remain pretty difficult to master, but I think that card is going to make it a lot easier to master, as well as make the deck much more viable in the meta. A lot of our most popular decks at the moment, both aggro and things like Conscription, focus on getting a whole bunch of creatures on the board as quickly as possible, since the game kind of lacks efficient AoE to answer all of these creatures. So you still need to survive till turn 5 or 6 to get your Doomcrag down, but now having this one card that can kind of swing the entire lane back in your favor should make it much easier for Doomcrag decks to stabilize against some of these opposing decks and kind of get back into the game more quickly than they otherwise would have, whereas in the past they would have to go Sharpshooter Scout, Raiding Party, Ashlander Zealot to clear all of the opponent's threats. Now maybe they just have to go Tiny Dragon into 1 Sharpshooter Scout, and that same result has been accomplished. So I think Doomcrag decks get a lot better from this card. And I can even, like I said, I can see some, not necessarily aggro decks, but some slower decks just running this as a 2-drop to where if your opponent's trying to be much faster than you and dropping a bunch of tokens or a bunch of 1-health creatures trying to get as much damage on the board as quickly as possible, one tiny dragon can, if not wipe their lane, set up a bunch of better trades for you. I think this is an amazing utility 2-drop. The best places for it being, obviously, I think Doomcrag is far and away the top use for this card. It's going to be amazing. And having cheap dragon synergy for dragon decks is going to be really good, as although they're not as represented in the meta. I think dragon decks are just fun to play, so them getting better is awesome. But I think it's a 2-drop that can fit into a lot of decks. If I was going to go off of my star system that I've been using, or I used in the first video, I would give this card a solid, at a minimum, 3.5 stars. But I would probably argue that this is a 4-star card. If not just for the power level in Doomcrag, I think this would be a 4-star card. That's how good I think this card is in that deck. We could even see this card be even stronger than I think it is if Doomcrag becomes more popular, or other synergies or strategies like it. So that is going to be it for now, guys. Let me know what you guys think of the card down below in the comment section, or if there's any ways that you're planning on using the card that I did not think of or mention yet. Again, thank you to Bethesda, thank you to Sparkypants for letting me take part in this, and thank you guys very much for watching and hanging out. I am excited for Isle of Madness. I hope you guys are as well. I'm looking forward to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comments section. But yeah, thank you all very much for watching. See you guys next time. Peace.